The Prime Minister an hour ago said, do not fall for Russian spin. This was war.
But I'll call it what it is. The Russian government launched a brutal invasion, unprovoked, on Ukraine and should be condemned for doing so, and Australia does.
Morrison admits that sanctions will not stop Vladimir Putin, but he and his cronies have to pay. He said Australia is now going to impose more sanctions, this time on 25 Russian army commanders, deputy defence ministers, mercenaries, organisations.
We must ensure there is a cost for this violent, unacceptable and egregious behaviour. There must be a cost.
But we're also paying the cost, and big time. It might not seem to you to be our war, but we are already paying billions for it. The Australian stock market today crashed, lost 3% of its value. That's $73 billion wiped out in one day. And oil prices are rising. You'll probably feel that at the Bowsers soon. Joining me is the country's top finance commentator, Terry McCrann of the Herald Sun. Terry, thanks for your time. How much do you think the war in Ukraine is going to hurt us?
Well, you've only seen the start of it, Andrew, with that $73 billion crash in share prices today. I must say, a little bit of good news. Towards the end, it stabilised because coming up, it looks to what's going to happen on Wall Street overnight. And Wall Street doesn't look as if it was going to crash as dramatically as one might have anticipated. The European stock markets are heading for much bigger falls, and the Russian stock market was going to go really down the tubes. It was going to drop by almost a third when it finally was to open. It's not going to open today. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to put much pressure on Vladimir Putin, because Vladimir Putin doesn't have his billions, and the oligarchs don't have their billions actually in their own stock market. They have it spread around the world. So unfortunately, he's not going to get that pressure on him. But as you say, that's one aspect. The second aspect is petrol prices. We saw petrol go over $2 a litre. That's not really reflecting what's happened to the crude oil price, because it takes a while, as everybody appreciates, for higher oil prices to actually flow through into higher petrol prices. So we're likely to see petrol prices head up well above $2, probably heading towards $2.50, subject, of course, to how this all plays out over the next few weeks. So those are the two big impacts. And then we've really got to see what actually happens on the ground and how much damage is done and what the sanctions are in terms of responding. I mean, it's a very strange situation, Andrew, putting aside all the brutal reality of the actual war. It strikes me as bizarre that you've still got Russia pumping gas down its pipeline to Germany and to other European countries. They get huge amounts of gas from Russia. What exactly is going to happen in that space? Are they going to want to keep taking the gas but not actually pay for it, because the financial sanctions supposedly say Russia can't actually transact business on the global financial market? So there's a lot of aspects of this conflict which are going to go deep into Western Europe and obviously to the global economy. And we're going to just have to see how they played out and how people who control things in the West respond.
That is so correct. I mean, oil is Russia's biggest export. Gas is huge. They've put in, I read some figures, like $70 billion into his war chest in the last year or so. That's what's financing a lot of this. But the West is so addicted to his oil and his gas. Europe depends 40% of its gas supplies from Russia. And even America, 7% of its oil imports are from Russia. It is unbelievable. And so I don't think they're serious about Russia until they close those exports, close that tap, because it's going to hurt them.
Exactly. I mean, it's unrealistic to expect Western countries to put boots on the ground in Ukraine, but they could certainly do exactly what you said, and that is to actually turn off that pipeline. Yes, Biden and the German chancellor agreed not to open the second pipeline that was going to pour even more gas into Western Europe, but they would really need to close off the existing pipeline to really exert pressure on Russia, and indeed also to embargo their oil exports.
This is a terrible dilemma, and it just shows how the West just wants the money, doesn't want to risk a body, and Putin just thinks he's home free. Terry McCrann, thank you so much for your time.